Shalom and welcome to Jewish Life, the show about people and issues in Judaism and some secrets you missed out in Hebrew school. Rabbi Simon Jacobson, many of you have seen him on our shows and many of you may be receiving his weekly emails. Rabbi Simon Jacobson has a weekly email that he sends out every week, connected to the Torah and connected to Jewish life, and many times connected to current events. Rabbi Jacobson has capacity also of running a newspaper, the Allgemeine Journal, allgemeine.com, has been writing comments and editorials. And there was one of those editorials that caught my eye, and I summoned Rabbi Jacobson to please come and shed some light. I think it is extremely relevant. And that is an editorial, an article titled The Death of Modern Zionism. Now this is extremely contemporary. We've experienced a monumental event, whether it's positive or negative, depending on your feelings. The withdrawal from Gush Kativ by the Israeli government, the expulsion of Jewish families from their homes. Without going into the details, the concept of an Jewish government evicting Jews from their homes, something that is so rich in our history, but never by our own. A whole issue has ensued regarding the graves. Even we had to exhume bodies from the earth, from the resting place. I mean, you put somebody to rest after his passing and you think that this is it. And even that they were not granted. The synagogues, some of the thoughts you have evolving around this, and it's connected, there's just so much, everybody has so much to say about it, about very much connected to what you call modern Zionism. And your caption was the death of modern Zionism. In my mind, I had an idea, and I've heard people say that, this was not the death of the modern Zionism. In a way, this is what modern Zionism is about. They don't want to do anything that will make the Jews stand out. We just got to do what the world wants. We're like everybody else. In a negative way, everybody's persecuting Jews. That's part of us. You know, Ben-Gurion said that his dream of a Jewish land will be when he will have Jewish prisoners and Jewish criminals. I don't know what is the pride in having your own criminals. I thought we want to be a light upon the nations and we want to be different. But you know what? Maybe that's what Zionism is about. I know I loaded on a mountain here, but I trust you that you'll manage here.
Well, I think we got to go back to the beginning of everything. You know, the best way to put it, I think, for a listening audience,
Gracious, from the beginning,
is to put things in context. You know, I think the best example is there's no business that can function without a mission. There's no country that can function without a purpose. Especially one that's smack in the middle of 100 million enemies who don't want it there, namely Israel. A piece of geography that's the size of New Jersey. Imagine New Jersey surrounded by an entire United States of hundreds of millions of people who don't want it there. So you better figure out why you're there. You know, you want to live in the French Riviera or some Timbuktu where nobody cares. Even there you need to have a purpose, but I'm not going to get into that. But when you're living among enemies, sworn enemies, you better know why you're there. You know? And that's really, when I call the death of modern Zionism, you see, Zionism had a dream. And I say now, I'm not talking now necessarily from a religious context, simply historical observation. Modern Zionism is identified with Theodor Herzl, with Weizmann, with Ben-Gurion, modern Zionism, which we call what was born at the end of the 19th century. Essentially witnessing the persecution of Jews in Europe, especially with Herzl. The case was that he witnessed the Dreyfus case. Dreyfus was the colonel,
Jewish colonel
in France, who who was discharged simply because he was Jewish, and it became a big scandal of anti-Semitism, of course. So him and others, secular thinkers, writers, he was a journalist, Herzl himself, felt that we have to have what's called the Jewish problem, a solution to the Jewish problem. I hate that word because it was later used, as
by
we
Hitler.
know, right, solution to the Jewish problem. I don't like to be negative, but the fact is, for historical purposes, it's important. Herzl himself was an extremely assimilated person, Jew.
He was looking to go to Uganda, actually.
But even before that, something more shocking. He thought maybe we should mass baptize all new Jewish-born children. Now, I'm not saying it's his idea only, but
Ferdinand and Isabella had that idea too.
Okay, but he was a Jew. Anyway, the point here, I'm not trying to even dismiss him. I'm just trying to say that Jews were thinking what to do about this issue. You're living among Gentiles. The world is no longer, the ghetto was opening up, what we call emancipation. Jews were being given more respect. What we call freedom. Freedom was born. And now Jews were being faced with this issue. And essentially, the dream ended up being what they call the modern Zionistic dream, a homeland. The cycle continues. I'm not going to give a full history lesson, but it's important to understand it, to understand where we are today. So you have the Balfour Declaration in the early 20th century, when Balfour of England, Lord Balfour, said,
when the English were in charge,
declared in his mandate that Palestine should be partition made, and Jews should have their natural homeland. Then, of course, things accelerated. World War I, World War II. Then the entire world feeling guilty and feeling responsible, somewhat, in a sense like payback. So the UN voted what we call the birth of modern Israel. The question is, all this sounded great. Now you have a homeland. Jews can come from anywhere. And they made it in a way that anyone can come, religious or not religious. I'm not even getting into the battles between the religions, but there's a homeland, fine. Now what? It's over 50 years since the founding of this modern state of Israel, which was the fulfillment of the Zionistic dream. So now what? When there was no homeland and Jews were being persecuted in Europe, it made sense.
You had something to look forward to.
So
it was a dream.
So I trying to make the point, which is especially being exposed lately with the conflicts in Israel, that Israel has lost its mission statement. It has a homeland, and now what? So ask all the modern Zionistic thinkers, if they were here today, if they're 19th century, in the 20th century, or the ones that are left over, so here you have your homeland. What's next? You have your Jewish criminals, as you put it. You have your diversity. You have your culture. Now what? So the answer is very simple. All the isms have never worked for Jews without a soul. Simple as that. And this is where the fundamental problem was. I am not denying that a homeland served a purpose. The fact is, many Jews became a place for many refugees after the war, and no one can take that away. Whether you're a Zionist or not, you can't take away the fact that Jews found a place to live.
Even the Judaism of the anti-Zionist has flourished.
Exactly. So you have a place, as they call a place of refuge. No one can deny. That it's the Holy Land, also no one can deny. It's a holy land no matter whether the Jews live there or not. It's a holy promised land. However, the real question is, does Israel have a neshama, a soul? Does it have a purpose that's not just national? It's not like the French living in France, the Spanish living in Spain, and the Jews happen to live in Israel. Well, the answer
is... But this is what Zionism intended to have.
However, the question is, is that a bankrupt mission? Can that work?
Well, let me throw you out. Here's a bunch of questions. A young Israeli, he knows at 18, whether he likes it or not, he's conscripted to the army. He doesn't have a choice. Where to go?
If I were a secular Israeli, I'd wonder, why should I subject my children to that?
Exactly.
There you go. So if Israel was living in complete peace, it wouldn't have this challenge. But the fact is, just like September 11 challenged America, Israel is challenged to find its soul. Why are we fighting? Why are we spending 50% of our defense budget? Exposing
our national budget.
Right. And exposing and subjecting our children to the dangers of war. And these are real dangers. It's not just some theoretical. Hundreds and thousands of young people have died in Sahel, in the Jewish and Israeli defense forces. Why are you subjecting them if you do not have a real, definitive, passionate reason? Then you shouldn't be there. And I think that Israel is going through such an identity crisis right now. There's an identity crisis. There's no question about it.
That's why you have them all in India and the Himalayas,
yep,
and pretty much all over the world. They're looking for something.
I personally, I think, all these latest interventions, whether you're pro or against this disengagement from Gaza, whether you're pro or against, whether you're left wing or right wing, one fundamental question has to be asked: why are you there? Why are you there? You have to have a reason. At best, I believe the Israeli leaders in the last few decades are good firefighters. They're putting out fires, but they're not putting out the big fire because they're not offering a vision. You know, I like to compare it personally to the time when America had to declare its independence from England. You have a Declaration of Independence. That's a monumental statement. What do they say? That we have been persecuted by King George, we've been overtaxed, and now there comes a time where we have to declare independence. And what do they say? All people are created equal. I corrected people. They wrote men, but we mean all people. Everybody has inalienable rights. Why were they forced to make that statement? Because they were persecuted and they realized Israel has to make a declaration of its independence. What do you stand for? What's your just a country of Jews is meaningless. That's like saying a country for French. And frankly, I think, and this is something it's sad to say, but I have to say it, many Arabs are much more passionate about their land and about their being there than many Jews. So Jews are basically saying, don't kill us. And the Arabs are saying, get out of our homeland. Jews are not saying, get out of our homeland. And I'm not suggesting Jews should be aggressive, nor should they be kicking anyone out. But the passion, the commitment, that connection. And I have to say, as I wrote in this article that you're citing, the religious Jews have disappointed us also equally. They're insulating themselves. It's not like they're coming out with a big vision.
Now, you spare nobody. The religious Jews, the Orthodox Jews that you started out on, I mean, you're talking about Zionism? We pray for Israel and Zion, what, 50, 60 times a day? Our prayers are replete. What do we ask God on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur? Rebuild our land. What do we ask every day, 3 times a day? Rebuild our land. On Simchas Torah, we dance. The joy of the land, and we're so connected to the land, to this. So where are you going at? Aren't the religious Jews doing the right thing?
Religious Jews may be doing the right thing in their personal lives by committing to Torah and mitzvahs, but they're not showing an example, a shining example of what it means to be a true Zionist. Let's put it this way. Let's take the word Zion itself, Tzion.
Okay, we're going to play on words. Okay, good.
Tzion. You know, the word Zion itself means a sign, a siman, a sign for what? So we're told it's a sign for godliness. For Jews, the land, the Torah, and the people are like 3 interwoven strands in one rope. And for Jews throughout history, one was not complete without the other. You can only do all the mitzvahs completely in Israel. You can only do them when you have all the Jews. And you can only do them when you have a complete Torah.
That's an important point.
Yeah. The Rebbe, the Lubavitcher Rebbe had coined a slogan, or it was more than a slogan, but it's a statement: Shleimus HaTorah, Shleimus HaAm, Shleimus HaAretz. A complete Torah, a complete nation, and a complete land.
All
so in other
intertwined.
words, exactly. Israel, if you look in the Bible, why is it a promised land? It's not that just God, it's because it's a spiritual land. It's a land that was meant to be the epitome of what it means to be a human being and a Jew in this world. When Abraham comes to Israel, and when we pray, what we're praying for is not just that we have why not Israel? It could be
a territory, right?
It's not a territory. It's because there's a refinement that this land has, a kedusha, as we call in Hebrew, a holiness, a sanctity.
The world does call it Holy Land.
Right, exactly.
Not for what?
And just like Yom Kippur is the holiest day of the year. Israel is the holiest land in the world, which is the reason that everyone gravitates to it. That's why all the major religions want to have a hold in there. But let's not forget, Abraham was promised this land. Isaac was promised this land. The Jews, the entire Bible is all about travel to the promised land. And Moses prays 515 times to go into this land. He doesn't make it. But the land didn't, so you have to ask yourself, what were they so obsessive about going into some physical land? Just choose another land. You can't go to Israel, go to France. You know, it's all optional.
America. Some people declared America as the promised land.
There was a consideration that Hebrew should be the language.
True.
Anyway, so the answer is very simple. Is because it's a godly land. It's a place where you can connect to God. We're told that when we pray, all our prayers travel through Israel, through Jerusalem, through the Temple Mount. So when it comes down to this, if you divorce Israel from its soul, from its spiritual connection to God, you basically are killing its purpose. And you sense today in Israel, as beautiful as the people are, and I love every Jew, there's no doubt about it. However, politically and philosophically, there's a great crisis. And I include the religious Jews in it, not because I'm trying to be negative, because the fact is the religious Jews are perhaps, they're committed to their tradition, but they have no idea how to communicate to the secular Jew a vision. Let them give an alternative. Let someone run for a prime minister that's not doing so for money. The religious Jews are seen by the secular as either you're in it for money, you're just another. But you don't find you find very few religious Jews, especially in politics, who get up and say, you know something, the vision of Israel is the vision of Abraham, of Isaac. Let's articulate it. Without an agenda, you don't hear that. I may be subjective, but I have to say, there was one man, the only man I ever heard as a Jewish leader was the Lubavitcher Rebbe, who week after week in his talks, this was his passion. And he was not involved in politics. It was about articulating the vision of what Israel is supposed to look like. So God did many miracles. In 1967, you mentioned the miracle, the fact that 5 million Jews live there and have an army and have such security and have, I mean, they're living in relative peace. But the bottom line is they have to know why they're there. So many Jews instinctively, I've met many secular Jews in Israel as well, who instinctively know there's something here, but they don't have the words. They weren't educated in how to fight for it. So there's no doubt that the Jews in Israel, even secular Jews, are not happy about, they're just ready to give away. They're not like, people shouldn't think that just because they're liberal, they want to just give away land. They have their calculate, they think they'll give away, they'll get something for it. Whether it's correct or not is not the issue. The problem is that it's what Judaism likes to call, it's faith without internalization. So there's like some general belief that Israel is important to us, but most do not know and don't have a spiritual vision. Look, I'll point out something which is very obvious. When you ask the Arab world, what do you want? They want the Jews out of this place. We want our land back. That's what the Arabs say, the Muslims. As the Jews, you have no answer. There's no clear answer. Do you want to give half of Jerusalem, a quarter of Jerusalem, half of this place? It's ambiguous, which means that people that is lacking the confidence. Why don't you just state clearly what you believe? Make the line in the sand.
But you also see, even actually, it's part of the confusion, but on the other hand, it's also a tremendous positive trait. When the soldiers were evacuating the Jews, they cried together, they hugged each other. I mean, which was an amazing, but still, like you're saying, it wasn't articulated. It was expressed in a way, but it wasn't articulated.
You know, Gaza is a symptom. It's just a symptom, like anything is a symptom. It's a symptom of, as I said, lack of understanding why we're really here.
It's like, why are we in Tel Aviv?
Yeah, exactly. So Tel Aviv, you'll say, because there's a few million people there, we're not leaving, or whatever the number is. I'm not sure the population.
And what? The discotheques we have there, the beach we have there.
It's buying time. Unfortunately, what you feel in Israel is that the leaders are buying time. And until they're not here anymore, it'll be someone else's problem.
Right.
That's what you sense. Yeah. You're gonna need a bold, courageous individual.
I must go back.
Get up with
so here is, you mentioned the Rebbe. And I must say that the Rebbe did succeed in a certain way of energizing a team of hundreds and hundreds of shluchim in Israel. And what is amazing is that people from all walks of life, there is an expression, kol hakavod l'Chabad, all respect to Chabad, because they're welcome everywhere, and they know that there are political differences. They know that Chabad are ultra religious, and they know all that, and somehow there are no boundaries, which is
Well, I will tell you the mistake that a lot of people have, especially when the Rebbe was, of course, extreme, you could say, very radical advocate for no return of any land, not 1 inch, for security reasons, as he spelled out many times. People mistakenly think that that's some type of right-wing position. And it wasn't that case at all. It's not correct at all. It wasn't a right-wing position. It was a position of a practical, pragmatic position, understanding the Arab mentality, understanding the nature of security and the nature of Jewish law. I say it because once you politicize things, then there is the distrust. What the Rebbe taught, by example, to all his Chassidim was that even if you disagree with someone, you never stop loving them. You don't personalize the disagreement.
It was very specific. A Chabad Chassid who tried to articulate the Rebbe's position, but he became somewhat personal, and it was on the radio, and the Rebbe reprimanded him for it.
Right.
That was wrong.
Yeah,
you cannot allow this to happen.
That's why the Rebbe did not believe in any type of like public defiance of the government, even if you disagree with them. And generally, the attitude is that I'm speaking from my heart. I love the land of Israel. I love Jews, and that's where I'm coming from. I'm not talking now about a political position. I disagree with you, and you're out of office. I want to be in office. That was not the objective.
There's been a lot of talk of the similarities between the events in Gush Katif and the events in Louisiana.
I'll tell you this, briefly. Though we Jews and the Torah believes in cause and effect, which means behavior in one place can affect another, but at the same time you have to take great caution and care of applying that, because then you're going to get into very thorny ground. The Holocaust killed 6 million Jews. Was it because there were 6 million assimilated Jews? You know, you don't want to go into that territory, because you're going then into the mysteries of God's plan.
You become God's accountant.
Right. So I have to say, you have to have humility in this area. I've seen that discussion, and people have asked me, and I'll tell you my answer is, I am not going to say no, absolutely no connection.
It's something to think about.
Right, but to say yes, I am not ready to take such responsibility.
Well, I was hoping that this is what you're saying, because I frankly, I think the same, but I do think that's something to think about. As Maimonides says, somebody who doesn't think about it,
you have to take to heart.
is cruel.
I'll add one more thing. If you apply it to yourself and you become a better person for it, great. But if you start pointing fingers at others, that's not our job, is to start saying...
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Rabbi Jacobson. This was very inspiring, and it definitely gave us a look into something. And to you out there, you can get your weekly inspiring emails by going to Rabbi Jacobson's website and signing up, subscribing to his weekly emails, which will inspire you. I am inspired every single week, and I'm telling you the truth. My whole family, we read it and we enjoy it. Rabbi Jacobson, you do a marvelous job on this. And I want to wish you again all the best, a great year, a lot of success in your new positions. And to you out there, until we meet again, hopefully with Mashiach, enjoy those inspiring essays. We wish you bracha v'atzlacha and all the best.
Mashiach, Mashiach, Mashiach.